Hi folks, good to be back with you again. This is Breaking News 3, reporting on some new breaking news as we continue to follow the story of the Virgin Mum Mary and her son Jesus. Now quite some time has passed since I had a correspondence with Mary. In fact, it's approximately 12 years. I thought that because of the length of time that Mary maybe had got a bit disinterested or maybe fed up with correspondence. I know sometimes we all know what it's like to maybe start corresponding with someone and then over a period of time, whatever happens, we maybe lose interest or we run out of things to say. So I thought that, you know what, that's it. I'm not going to hear anything more about the life of Mary and the life of Jesus as he was growing up. But she did contact me. It was good to hear from her again. And in her correspondence, she really focused on one thing in particular. And it was an incident that happened on a journey while she and Joseph and Jesus, they were returning from a customary trip to Jerusalem for a festival. Mary emphasized that this incident was the most anxious, stressful, and worrying and frightening experience of her life. In fact, she says that it was so worrying and caused her so much anxiety, and you'll see why in a moment, that she felt it actually left her traumatized. And we could maybe identify with that as parents as we look into the incident that she reported to me. She sent me a headline. She cut it out from the local newspaper. And this is what it read. Breaking news. 12-year-old boy goes missing on journey back from Jerusalem to Nazareth. And Mary included also in the headline a cutout from the story that ran in the local newspaper. And this is what it said. Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the festival according to the custom. After the festival was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. Thinking he was in their company, they travelled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." "Why were you searching for me?" Jesus asked. "Didn't you know? I must be about my Father's business." But they did not understand what he was saying to them. Then he went down to Nazareth with them, and he was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature, and in favour with God and man. Now I can't honestly imagine what went through Mary and Joseph's mind as they had to turn back after a day's journey and begin looking for their missing son in the vast and crowded city of Jerusalem. If you've ever saw any pictures of Jerusalem, you'll understand what a daunting task that must have been. Do you know what, folks? It's probably bad enough if you lose your child in a large shopping centre or on a beach or somewhere else. But a vast city, like Jerusalem, where would you start? Where would you begin to look for a 12-year-old boy? A city that was full of people. It was crowded. Many people were doing that customary journey at the same time as Mary and Joseph and Jesus. So it was a crowded city at that time. The journey from their hometown of Nazareth to Jerusalem was approximately 90 miles. It was an arduous journey, probably through hills and probably dangerous parts of the hills too, where there would have been bandits. And the fact that they had walked for a full day, probably believing, quite honestly, that Jesus was, like any other young boy, hanging around with the other kids, having a bit of fun, to maybe shorten the arduous 90 miles back home. I can imagine, perhaps, some of those relatives, when they found out that Jesus had been missing for a day, criticising. How could they neglect to check on their boy, their 12-year-old boy, for a day? How did they not check sooner? What were they thinking of? How guilty. And how worried Mary and Joseph must have been. Their feelings must have been all over the place as they started the journey back to Jerusalem on their own. Now, why do I say the journey back to Jerusalem on their own? They had journeyed a day out from Jerusalem, so it's quite obvious they had the journey that same day, another day back into Jerusalem. But when I read the report, there's no mention in there of any of the relatives or family returning with them to go and search for Jesus. It doesn't say that anywhere. I wonder, and I don't know, but I just wonder, did Mary and Joseph play the blame game? Do you know, folks, what happens often when people are under pressure and they're anxious? They often say things, behave in ways that they normally wouldn't or shouldn't. And I just wonder, did that happen? I wonder, did one or the other say, you should have checked to see where Jesus was? And maybe the other one responded to that question. Well, you told me he would be all right because he's with the other kids having fun. So I didn't check. So don't blame me. It's your fault as much as mine that he's missing. Now, I don't know if that was the conversation, but I could imagine if it was. So here they are. A day's journey back to Jerusalem, and they start to search this vast, bustling city, looking for a 12-year-old boy that literally could have been anywhere. All in all, folks, when you calculate it, it took 5 days for them to locate Jesus. Now that would indicate to me that where they eventually found Jesus was not at the top of their list for the places to begin looking for him. It took them 3 days to find him. They were surprised to find Jesus sitting in the temple with the teachers and scholars, interacting with them. 12-year-old boy, interacting with the teachers and the scholars, asking them questions. It seems that Mary and Joseph's immediate reaction, as well as relief, was astonishment at what they witnessed and heard concerning their 12-year-old boy, Jesus. This is what the newspaper report said about the incident. After 3 days, they found Jesus in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Sitting among the teachers, listening to them, asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this?" Son, why have you treated us like this? I wonder what was taking place in the temple with the 12-year-old Jesus and these academic men. It was truly astonishing. But what I found even more astonishing was Jesus' answer to his mother's question, "Why have you treated us like this?" This is what Jesus said. "Why are you searching for me? Didn't you know I must be about my Father's business?" It seems, in effect, what Jesus was saying to his mother Mary was, what's the big deal? What's all the fuss about? I was only doing what I had to. We can understand Mary's confusion. Well, I can, at her son's answer. When he said, "I must be about my Father's business." Now we know that Joseph was not Jesus' biological father, and also that his business was carpentry. And therefore, the temple was not the place to learn about woodwork. He wasn't there doing an apprenticeship. Mary and Joseph did not genuinely understand what Jesus was saying to them. They could not understand who the Father was that Jesus was referring to, and what was the nature of the business he was to carry out on his behalf. In the years to come, perhaps that business and the Father Jesus was referring to would become more clear. I would like to find out what Jesus meant when he said that to his mother. Did you not know I must be about my Father's business? In the meantime, the report said that Jesus then went back down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. Not interesting, he was obedient to them. You see, I don't think Jesus, when he went AWOL for those 3 days, I don't think he thought he was being disobedient to his parents. Somehow I sense that in Jesus' heart and Jesus' mind, he was being obedient to this father, this other father, and the business that his father had told him to do. I'm looking forward to find out what that business really was. And who is this father that Jesus was referring to? But he was obedient to them. And then we get a sense that, and this was also awesome for Mary, and that she treasured these things in her heart. She pondered them. Why did my son do that? What does he mean? What's going on within him? You know what, folks? Sometimes we find it hard to know what's going on within the hearts and minds of our kids. And Mary experienced that. She didn't know what was going on in Jesus' heart and in Jesus' mind at that time. Now, I don't really know when I will receive, or if I will receive, another update on what is taking place in the life of this miracle child called Jesus. But I do truly anticipate that there will be more astonishing events in the life of this boy called Jesus as he grows up. I really do look forward to following that. I'm intrigued at this story. And I hope you are too, as it unfolds. And it is an unfolding story. And I look forward to finding out and reporting to you as much as I can. So until the next update, health and peace to you all from Totally Skeptical, the reporter you can trust. Take care. Bye.